The black sedan kicked up clouds of dust as it rolled to a stop on the deserted dirt track. Inside, Mara gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. She was done. Done with the burden. Done with the sacrifice. Done with pretending. In the back seat sat 7-year-old Elsie, strapped into her blue wheelchair, wearing the bright red dress her father had bought her last week. The girl's brown eyes were already wet with tears because she knew something terrible was coming. Mara glared at her through the rearview mirror, her face twisted with resentment. This wasn't how her life was supposed to turn out. She had married Evan for security, for stability, for a chance at something better. But instead, she got a child who needed constant attention, a child who slowed everything down, a child who reminded her daily that she would never be truly free. The wheelchair represented everything Mara hated about her new life. Without warning, Mara threw the car into park and stepped out. Her heels sank into the loose dirt as she yanked open the back door. She grabbed the wheelchair and shoved it out onto the gravel with such force that Elsie had to grip the armrest to keep from falling. The metal frame clattered against the stones, scraping and scratching. Elsie's small voice trembled as she begged Mara to stop, but the woman wasn't listening anymore. She dragged the wheelchair closer to the road, where the ground sloped dangerously toward the asphalt. Elsie's panic rose as she realized what was happening. The brake lever on her right side was already broken from Mara's rough handling days before, and now the chair was tilting toward the road. She tried to hold on, tried to stop the wheels from rolling, but her small hands weren't strong enough. Tears streamed down her face as she screamed for help, but Mara just stared at her with cold, empty eyes before turning back toward the car. Mara leaned down until her face was inches from Elsie's, close enough that the girl could see the hatred burning in her stepmother's eyes. Her voice was sharp and cutting, designed to wound. She told Elsie that she was the reason everything was hard, that she was broken, that she made everyone's life miserable. Each word landed like a blow, and Elsie flinched with every syllable. Mara didn't care about the tears or the trembling lips. She wanted the girl to feel as worthless as Mara felt trapped. The accusations poured out in a torrent of cruelty. Mara blamed Elsie for the financial strain, for the lost freedom, for the pitying looks from strangers. She told the child that her own father was blind, that he pretended the wheelchair didn't exist, that he was fooling himself by loving her. But Mara saw the truth, she claimed. She saw the burden, the inconvenience, the endless demands. And she was tired of carrying that weight. Elsie tried to defend herself, her small voice barely audible over the wind cutting across the empty track. She said her father didn't think she was broken, that he loved her just the way she was. But Mara only sneered and told her that love wasn't enough to erase reality. The woman's anger seemed bottomless, fueled by months of resentment and frustration that had been building inside her like pressure in a sealed container. Then came the final threat, the one that made Elsie's blood run cold. Mara warned her that if she dared tell her father what happened here, no one would believe her. Mara would twist the story, make herself the victim, paint Elsie as a dramatic, attention-seeking child who loved to cause trouble. She would tell Evan that Elsie had begged to stop, that the girl was trying to sabotage their marriage. And he would believe Mara because adults always believed other adults over children. With that poisonous promise hanging in the air, Mara straightened up, brushed the dust from her dress, and walked back to the car. She slid into the driver's seat and slammed the door hard enough to make the frame shake. The engine roared to life. As Mara pressed down on the accelerator, gravel shot out from under the tires like bullets. The car lurched forward, leaving Elsie behind in a thick cloud of brown dust. The little girl screamed until her voice cracked, begging Mara not to leave her. But the black sedan kept moving, pulling farther and farther away. Elsie's wheelchair shifted on the unstable ground, the slope dragging her closer to the white edge line of the road. She tried desperately to grip the wheel rims with her small palms, but the metal was rough and hot, burning her skin. Inside the car, Mara kept her eyes forward, her jaw clenched tight. She told herself this was necessary, that Elsie needed to learn, that sometimes tough love required extreme measures. But even as she tried to convince herself, doubt crept in like poison. Her hands trembled on the wheel, and against her better judgment, her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. The mirror wasn't just reflecting the road behind her. In the corner of the glass, a small digital screen glowed with an ominous red light. The rear camera. Evan had installed it last month after a minor fender bender, a safety feature that recorded everything happening behind the vehicle. Mara's heart dropped into her stomach as she read the notification flashing across the screen. Upload in progress. Panic flooded through her body like ice water. The camera had captured everything. Elsa being shoved out of the car, the wheelchair being pushed toward the road, every cruel word Mara had spoken, every threat she had made. And now that footage was being uploaded automatically to the cloud, where Evan would have access to it. Her mind raced, trying to calculate how much time she had before he saw it, before her carefully constructed lies came crashing down around her. Behind her, Elsa's screams grew more desperate. A horn sounded in the distance, growing louder by the second. Mara looked back at the mirror screen and saw her stepdaughter's wheelchair rolling dangerously close to the asphalt as a vehicle approached from around the bend. The little girl in the red dress was seconds away from disaster, and it was all being recorded in perfect clarity. Mara's foot hovered between the gas pedal and the brake, her body frozen in indecision. Every instinct screamed at her to keep driving, to put distance between herself and the scene before anyone else arrived. But the blinking red light in the mirror held her captive. The evidence was already uploading. Running wouldn't save her now. With a strangled cry, she slammed on the brakes, and the sedan screeched to a halt, tires squealing against the gravel. But she was too late to reach Elsie first. A massive truck came barreling around the curve, its engine roaring like thunder. Behind the cracked windshield, a middle-aged driver named Ruffy spotted the little girl in the wheelchair teetering on the edge of the road. His eyes went wide with horror, and he crushed the brake pedal with his full weight. The truck's tires screamed in protest, leaving black marks on the asphalt as it fought to stop. Ruffy leaned out his window and shouted at Elsa to move, his voice cracking with urgency. The little girl used every ounce of strength she had left to drag the one working brake lever, pulling herself sideways into the gravel shoulder just as the truck roared past. The rush of wind from a massive vehicle knocked her sideways, whipping her hair across her tear-streaked face. She sobbed with relief, clutching the armrests like they were the only solid things left in the world. Mara jumped out of the sedan and ran toward Elsie, her face arranged in an expression of fake concern. She called out sweetly, pretending she had only been turning the car around, acting as though she had been worried sick. But Elsie wasn't fooled. She shook her head and told Mara the truth, her small voice steady despite the tears. Ruffy climbed down from his truck and confronted Mara directly, having heard enough through his open window to know exactly what had happened. The truck driver examined the wheelchair's broken brake lever and listened to Elsa's account of how it had been damaged. When Mara tried to call the child a liar, Ruffy held up his phone and told her the whole world would soon know the truth because he had recorded the confrontation. Then Mara's sedan beeped, and her face went pale as she read the new notification. Upload complete. Shared with Evan Hale. Miles away, Evan was sitting in his work truck when his phone buzzed with a notification. He frowned and opened the app connected to the rear camera, expecting to see footage of a parking lot or traffic. Instead, he watched in growing horror as a screen showed his wife shoving their daughter's wheelchair onto a dirt road, driving away while the little girl screamed, and then the near miss with the truck. Every cruel word Mara had spoken was captured with perfect audio clarity. His hands shook so violently he nearly dropped the phone. Evan didn't waste a single second. He threw his truck into gear and tore down the highway, his tires screaming as he pushed the vehicle to its limits. Every mile felt like an eternity, and his mind churned with rage and guilt. How had he not seen this coming? How many other times had Mara hurt his daughter when he wasn't watching? The questions tortured him as he drove, but they would have to wait. Right now, all that mattered was getting to Elsie. Back at the dirt track, Mara made one final desperate attempt to control the narrative. She grabbed the wheelchair handles and leaned down, trying to coach Elsie into lying when her father arrived. But the little girl had found her courage. She looked up at her stepmother with tears still wet on her cheeks and told her that she didn't need to ruin her because Mara had already ruined herself. The simple truth of those words hit harder than any accusation could have. When Evan's pickup finally skidded to a stop in a cloud of dust, he jumped out and ran to his daughter. He fell to his knees and examined every scrape, every tear, every sign of trauma on her small body. Elsie collapsed into his arms, sobbing that Mara had left her, that she had been so scared. Evan held her tight and then stood to face his wife, his body shaking with barely controlled fury. He demanded that she explain, that she tell him the video had somehow lied. But Mara had no explanation that would save her. She stammered about teaching strength and claimed Elsie was being dramatic, but her words fell flat against the evidence. Ruffy confirmed everything with his own testimony, and the camera footage spoke for itself. As police sirens wailed in the distance, Evan made his promise to Elsie that no one would ever hurt her again. The sun set over the date track, painting the sky blood orange, and the abandoned sedan's mirror still glowed with a damning red light, a permanent record of cruelty exposed and justice served.